Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. You'll find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much.
This talk is about renunciation. And renunciation is kind of word that it just doesn't sound very good, at least to me. Renunciation sounds like you're giving up something that you might not want to give up. It's like quitting smoking or, I don't know, things that you... But in actuality, I've been kind of working with this a little bit with renunciation. And I've come away with a slightly different perspective. So I'd like to kind of take you on the journey that I've been on and anyway, just share that with you. So it all starts, wow, it started many long years ago. But more recently it started, not that long ago. The Gail Laurie, me, was not feeling very well. Physically I was fine. But I was entering into this place, maybe some of you know it, of just not feeling kind of lonely and separated from everybody else and just not feeling very worthy. And for whatever reason, And it's just something that kind of creeps in occasionally. And it's not a pleasant thing. So, so having felt this, there was this awareness that I had at some point that was like, wait a minute, I know this one. This is something that's, I know this. I know exactly where this came from. This is from age, 6 months. So I get it, I know this one. And so that was somewhat relieving. It wasn't, the story wasn't, so set in me because I knew it came from something else. It wasn't just something that was a part of me, that is me. Instead, it was something that was created at some certain time and it comes up. So that was a relief. That was the start. So I had been thinking about that, and I happened to talk to Flint actually when I was in that funk and kind of just talking about where I was and the discomfort. And he talked a little bit and he said, let it be. Now, Flint has said let it be to me recently, a couple of times. And I also hear him using that phrase in inquiry. Now, it's a curious phrase to me. What does that really mean? And of course, I think of Paul McCartney when I think of let it be. I'm dating myself. But anyway, that still doesn't help, really. Nothing when it comes to me speaking words of wisdom. Well, maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. So I kind of started there, and then I kind of let it to rest. I need to do a Dharma talk, so I hit my book, one of my favorite books, 365 Nirvana, Here and Now, Living Every Moment in Enlightenment. And it's actually a compilation of many little entries on all different subjects having to do with Buddhism and enlightenment and all sorts of things, presence. So I love this book to kind of refer to, gives me ideas sometimes for Dharma talks. And sure enough, I found something that for some reason caught me. So I'm going to read it to you if you'll indulge me on this. It's called Renunciation. You have absolutely nothing to give up. Nothing to surrender. Nothing to let go of. You are already liberated. How can you believe that you have to let go of something that never existed? You believe you have to let go of your attachments. How can the self, big S, have attachments? You think you have to surrender all of your fears, all of your depressions, all of the things that have been bothering you. Surrender to who? Those things are not yours. They do not belong to you. You are pure reality. You are the imperishable self, largest. Never were you born, never did you prevail, and never will you leave. You are the one, the all-pervading one. Consequently, you have absolutely nothing to give up, for you had never anything to begin with. This is by Robert Adams. Now this really got me going. I said, wow, this is interesting, okay. But what was even more interesting to me was the italicized little quote at the bottom, which presumably comes from the guy who made this compilation. By the way, his name is, if I didn't say it already, Josh Baron, or Baron maybe. Anyway, it says, it is not about letting go of anything. It is about letting everything be. There's that same statement. So I really like that, and I thought, well, okay, I'm gonna work on this. So there's where I started. And so the question arose to me, what's the difference between letting go and letting it be? Okay, so I think, well, letting go of something is letting it drop maybe, not dwelling on it. A sense of removal or dismissal of it maybe, or separating from some issue or one's feelings about it. And maybe letting something be entails some acceptance of the thing, and maybe holding it lightly without clinging to our preferences about it. So those were my ideas. And then I started to think about the renunciation, the renunciation chant from the morning. Oh, thank you so much. And as we all know, we say that every morning in Zazen or after Zazen, all my ancient twisted karma from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, born through body, speech, and mind, I now fully allow. All our ancient twisted karma from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, born through body, speech, and mind, we now fully allow. All the ancient twisted karma from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, born through body, speech, and mind, all being now fully avows. This is the renunciation. So, we could say that this stuff that comes up and haunts us is all my ancient twisted karma. All our ancient twisted karma. And what do we do with all our ancient twisted karma? We let it be. We just let it be. So I went further. I said, well, okay, let's see what else somebody else says about it. So I looked up an article from Pima Chodron. It's an old article, it's from 1991. Nonetheless, she says that she was taught that renunciation has something to do with letting go of holding back. Letting go of holding back. Okay, so now we're coming somewhere. One is renouncing, closing down, and shutting off life. That's interesting. And opening to the teachings of the present moment. Okay. So that's kind of interesting. So the basic view of Buddhist teachings and other contemplative and mystic traditions is that people are fundamentally, this is all Pima. It's going to show you what she has to say. Fundamentally good and healthy. People are fundamentally good and healthy. We hear that all the time. Goodness. We talk about goodness here all the time. Remember this understanding. It is as if we all have the same birthright of the enormous potential of a warm heart and clear mind. That's part of what we think here, right? So the practice of renunciation is realizing that we already have exactly what we need. That what we have already is good. Every moment has enormous energy, and we can connect with that. So there's an energy of the seasons that come and go, each one following the other. People are born, mature, and grow old, and then die. The cycles of life for human beings and animals, living things. Everything has its cycles, and we are part of it, and it's good to be part of it. We're part of the whole thing. Renunciation is realizing the insanity of wanting to stay in a limited, protected, petty world. Once you feel how big the world is, its connection to everything, and how vast our potential for experiencing life, then renunciation becomes more understandable. Sitting in meditation, we feel our breath come and go out. And we have a sense of willingness just to be open to the present moment. As we breathe in, and we breathe out, we're aware of the present moment. Our mind wanders into stories and fabrications and manufactured realities we say to ourselves. Just thinking, with a lot of compassion and gentleness. So as we're paying attention, these things come up, and with compassion and gentleness, just thinking, and we go back. Every time we let the story go and are willing to let go at the end of the breath, that is renunciation. Starting anew. In this, we are learning how to let go of holding on and holding back. And yes, our energy gets blocked at times, like some sort of river that collects with stuff and blocks it. But letting go at the end of the out-breath, letting thoughts go, removes the blocks so the energy and life force can flow again. We don't have to put up with the blocks that occur out of fear of the unknown, that say no to life and to feeling life. Renunciation is seeing clearly how we hold back, pull away, shut down, close off, and then we learn how to open. It's about saying yes to whatever is on your plate, whatever knocks at the door, and whatever phone call is coming in. How do we actually do that? It has to do with coming up to our edge. And this is exactly what renunciation means. Coming to that edge and being with it. We're all climbing the same mountain. Doesn't matter where you meet your edge, whether it's early on, where you have your teaching quick, or it's halfway up, or it's at the top of the mountain. You're just meeting it at some point. And you may ask yourself, why am I scared? Why don't I want to see? When meditating, we're creating a lot of space. Sounds good, but actually can be unnerving, because with a lot of space, you can see very clearly, and you can come up against your edge faster. How do we renounce? How do we work with the tendency to block and freeze and refuse to take another step toward the unknown? How do we learn to open the door and step through it again and again, so that life becomes a process of growing up, of becoming more fearless and flexible? With tremendous beauty and inspiration. That's the way we do it. When you meet your edge, rather than saying, I made a mistake, you can acknowledge the present moment and its teaching. You can hear the message, which is simply that you're saying no. The instruction is to soften around the no. Connect with your heart and engender a basic attitude of generosity and compassion toward yourself. The journey of awakening is continually coming up against big challenges and learning how to soften and open. Or the paralyzed quality seems to be hardening and refusing. And the letting go or renunciation of that attitude is simply feeling the whole thing in your heart, letting it touch your heart. You soften and feel compassion for your predicament and for the whole human condition, all those who are also in this predicament. You soften so that you can actually sit there with those difficult feelings and let them soften you more. The whole journey of renunciation, or starting to say yes to life, is realizing that you have come up against your edge, that everything you are saying no to, and then softening. It's another opportunity to develop loving kindness for yourself with playfulness. And so every morning after sitting in the Zendo, we chant our renunciation, where we avow our ancient twisted karma. We accept our ancient twisted karma, and then open to our life by taking refuge in Buddha, refuge in Dharma, refuge in Sangha. One thing I want to say before I finish, actually, she makes a reference to these ravens. You know, she's up in Canada, and there were these crazy ravens that were outside the window. She'd see them in the storms. No matter how bad the storms were, the ravens were out there, and they were in these trees, and he was watching them, and they would grasp onto the limbs, and then they just kind of hang there with the wind blowing and blowing, and at some point they just let go, and they go, and they fly off, and then they come back. And she said they would repeatedly, and sometimes they would kind of hold onto each other. You know, they'd latch onto each other, and then the last one would let go, and off they go, and here they'd come back. So that's us. So when you feel like you need a renunciation, you can think of the ravens. So, any comments or questions, and then we can do a little exercise. So, any questions? Comments or anything?
I don't know that I can express this as clearly as it is in my mind, but this just really connected with an issue that I have been working with, and that is Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Because there are Dharma gates I avoid. And so what you were talking about with renunciation is where you're trying to live separate and protected and renouncing that and live fully and completely into what is, and take risks and join in. And I saw it this week. I got an email supposedly from a cousin, but it was sent to her entire address book. And it had a video saying that in just months, there is going to be a war in America. And it is, Black people have had it with all these immigrants from the South coming in. And, and without even any question, I went, I have to respond, because it was sent to 450 people. This video and I responded. And I've heard from a few family members, and one person I didn't know said thank you. And the family member said, wow, great. And my sister said, I hope you don't end up regretting this with all these crazies and that put some fear in me. But it was stepping through that Dharma gate. And I thought, if we don't speak up, people can think that what they're hearing has some basis to it.
Mm.
And when you were talking about renunciation, that
Yeah. It's a lot about, it's interesting because it's a lot about, as you say, seeing things for what they are and not trying to push it away. And accepting it, that that's what it is. And I think a lot of us spend a lot of time arguing with ourselves or with life or whatever, because we don't like whatever's coming. It's just a simple, it's there, and you can work with it. Thank you for mentioning that. And I was thinking about this thing that had come up in me. I didn't mention that. So it really helped for the turn of being kind to this part of me that enters in there. It's just a trauma, But I mean, yeah, really. And so it's just something that has to be really, spend time with that. And it's good that this stuff comes up. You don't want to deal with it, but it gives you an opportunity to really take care of it. And you're never going to take care of it forever, but you take care of it now. So, yeah.
I was thinking about the difference between, was it let it be and letting go, and thinking about some aspects of my conditioning that have come up lately, particularly in Molokai Intensive, where I got to sit with it for long periods of time, and was realizing the energy that I devote to trying to engage with it in some way, either through suppressing or pushing away, as opposed to letting it be, which is not denying that experience, but not living from it either. And so the inquiry became, what does it look like to live free from my preferences and conditioning? Not to say that they're not there, but to be free from those things. So I've been thinking about that, letting it be, for me, that I had a sense of conditioning that I've been operating inside of along my maternal line that I could suddenly see very far back and saw how I was carrying it and responding.
Exactly.
And then suddenly there was this opening where I realized that's still going to be there. And I don't have to live in some sort of reactivity to it one way or another. So thank you for the teaching around letting it be. We've really landed in a soft space.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Milan.
Hi.
Hi there.
I was wondering, how do you understand the relationship between repentance and renunciation? I found it interesting because I have been working with repentance, and sometimes this verse that you related is, for my understanding, is the repentance ceremony, and I just found it interesting how you make that relationship.
That's kind of interesting. Yeah, so what I'm understanding, and correct me if I misunderstood you, that you've been working with repentance, and so wanting to know the difference between repentance and renunciation. Is that right?
Yeah, at the first time I thought the difference as a concept, but then as you were talking, I sort of understood that it's more a relationship than a difference, or that's how I found it correlated.
Relationship in, explain that further?
Repentance, and as you were talking, the letting go, you understand what I'm trying to say?
I guess repentance, yeah, I guess I still have kind of a negative, probably my childhood growing up in church. I heard enough about repentance, so I have a really negative, so I haven't really thought of repentance. I always think of repentance as guilty as charged, so I'm not, I don't have a very clear idea of repentance. I don't think of repentance, I don't think of it in terms of, do we talk about repentance here? We do?
I just went to practice discussion several times, and yes. But it's fine, like, I just wanted to know if you thought about it, but if not, it's okay.
I didn't think about that at all. I was focused on renunciation. And I'm going to think about that, Milan. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Think about it.
Isn't all my ancient twisted karma, isn't that called repentance in our?
Oh, I thought it was renunciation.
It's the repentance.
Oh, okay. Well, we always look at it as renunciation. Or I've always heard it as it's our renunciation. So yes, I would say it's the same, renunciation. It's talking about the same thing of letting go. I think the action is letting go of something, that's letting it be there, accepting it, and then dealing with it, as opposed to, I think of repentance is.
It is repentance,
Oh, good.
but it's a vowing, simply a vowing, as opposed to shame.
Yeah, and see, I get a huge, when I think of repentance, not that, but repentance in general, I get this whole shame thing, so, but I don't look at that, I look at that as renunciation, what we read, so. In my mind, I'm not, I need to research that, because as far as how we look at it in Buddhism in general, but like he says, it's a vowing. But I have not made that connection. I just completely space out repentance because it means something completely different to me. It means shame. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, Jill.
Well, I want to thank her for bringing it up because I think many of the phrases that we have brought forth from ancient Buddhism were chosen by Christian missionaries that were interpreting it.
Mhm.
And, you know, I remember Flint saying something like, and I wish Flint needs to be here to say, I don't know, that sin is not really a concept in Buddhism. And repentance, it's repentance of sin, I think. And so I'm questioning that word, how we got that word, and do we want that word in our chant book?
Yeah, I think it would be worthy to be looking at it, because that's exactly my reaction. It's this thing about, you have sinned, and we don't look at things like that at all. That seems like kind of a controlling mechanism for people.
There's two people.
Oh, we got more. Lisa.
So this brought up a lot for me. And I love that you said you're never going to take care of forever, but you can take care of now. And also my practice edge and letting go is around, guess what? Some family relationships. And I remember Flint saying recently, it could be an inquiry, it's like, you know, the family is your container. It's like, that's where your work is. You know, all the family stuff that it comes up, right?
They're your best teacher.
You can't get away from it, darn it. And so what your reflections did for me, it's make me aware of how rigid I am about letting go. Now, that may sound odd, but I have these really, I have these impossible standards for myself. And for me, I know there's some little part that says letting go is making things disappear. If I'm really good, I won't have these feelings. If I'm really skillful. Well, you know, I know that's kind of silly, right? But nevertheless, I've got this little piece that says, oh, if I could just let go. And it really has, that piece almost won't let go of me. So I'm looking at it and it's like, oh, hello. A practice edge may look different than I thought. Or, you know, it's all how all these little voices are flittering around, you know, instructing me what the perfect practice would be. Oh, that's horrible to hear myself saying that. Okay, the perfect practice. So I have these ideas about if I just get it right, you know, that all this stuff won't bother me. But one of the important things is I'm imagining or envisioning a practice edge right now is being on a diving board and coming to the edge of the diving board. And maybe instead of a pool, you know, there's liberation. There's liberation in, you know, letting this be a process. But I keep coming to the end of the diving board and I just don't want to jump. I just don't. Is it like that I don't want that freedom? You know, and you said, well, you know, what are all the things? What am I scared of? So there were so many wise words and questions there. And now I'm imagining myself more on the edge of the diving board. I'm imagining myself on the diving board. Instead of being afraid that I'll hit the water or drown, it's like, oh, you know, maybe I'll have a form that will enable me to flow And maybe the water is not as deep and scary as I thought. So that's kind of what it loosened up with me, letting the process be. And that's a tremendous help because of the way I work with things. So thank you, Laurie. Wonderful. It's a wonderful way to approach this.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thank you for your report.
Good morning. Good morning, Laurie. Thanks for this
Good morning.
very nice talk, very evocative. I was just reading the new chapter from Peg's book that she has posted online for comments, and she describes it's not exactly repentance and it's not exactly renunciation, but having a whole body experience of impermanence. That a tornado came down right on top of her house and broke the windows out, and she managed to escape serious injury just by chance, and that there was a period when she was standing in her hallway of her house, and she says it sounded like cannons were firing concrete blocks at the roof, and there was water coming in and glass breaking everywhere, and she, in the moment, she could hardly even process what was happening. That she said she was like an animal, just frozen still, and coming back to the realization that she relies on permanence of things that are always impermanent, that our life is always changing. And it's a wonderful story in the chapter. And it's meaningful to me because that happened just a few weeks after I started attending Appamata regularly. And I remember showing up that morning and coming to Peg's house after this occurred, and kind of being in shock, And the story that Flint tells about renunciation, or I've heard from Flint, from Peg, and read elsewhere, about the Korean teacher who has a beautiful teacup. And when he uses the teacup, he praises it, and he says, "Oh, look at how beautiful this teacup is." And his students say, like, "Why are you praising this thing? Aren't you supposed to be renouncing worldly possessions?" And he says, "When I look at it, I know that it's already gone. One day it'll break. One day I won't be here to appreciate. One way or another, it's already gone in reality." And that to me is what renunciation is. It's like appreciating what you have and knowing that it's impermanent, really knowing that it's impermanent. And I thought of those when you were giving your talk. And I love the thing about the ravens too, making a game out of being blown away.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Joel.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a minute each. It's a lightning round.
Do we have a minute?
Yes, you have a minute.
No, that's okay. The only thing I wanted to say is thank you for your talk and what you bring when they were saying about repentance. For me, I know it's a connotation of in the Christianity where I grew up, but the way I see more repentance is a reminder of my continuing mistake over and over. And that's when we do the chants of following ancient twisted karma. And I see that the reminder, and the connection with the renunciation came very. You're talking about Blanche in her book has the quote about renunciation, the first page, and really very just what you say is the moment that we stop forcing the way we want things to be and how do I want, and you just stay in that space, like you say, just to be. I really like that. It's just to be, instead to think about letting go, that's something that I need to do, just to be, and that's when she is completely that renunciation. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia. Okay, Becky.
Yes, thank you very much for this talk. And yes, you're absolutely right that the translations are part of the problem, but they started way before the English missionaries. Is that it mainly means sorrow, and it just all got jumbled together extra. But the Latin root of it is sorrow. And I'll just, how simple can I make this? How simple let it be. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
Perfect, Becky. Thank you.